Welcome to the Built to Lead podcast. We've got a good topic for you guys today. I'm excited to talk about this. I think it's a very relevant topic to where we are today. And actually, that's why we're doing this episode rather than at a different time. We've been having guests on up to this point, but I just really felt strongly that this topic would be the most helpful to our listeners and to our viewers at this time being. Tyler's back with us. Welcome, Tyler.
Hello, everybody.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So today we're going to talk about leading through adversity. And I was thinking about this as I have had my portion of adversity throughout the years, and I'm well versed with adversity. But I'm going, okay, well, what does the adversity actually even mean? I like to kind of dig in a little bit deeper into what I'm talking about. And the definition is just two words, which is difficulties and misfortune. I actually thought that was really solid definition, because the reality is with adversity is it's kind of always going to be there if you're going to be leading or in business or just be alive. You're going to face difficulties. It's if you have kids, if you're married, if you're in a relationship, if you have to pay your bills, if you're working every day, there's going to be difficulties that you come against all the time. Yeah. And then there's going to be the things that are not just day to day, which are just purely unfortunate, misfortune. You know, things happen, accidents happen, mistakes happen, things that are out of our control come at us. And that's a different kind of adversity. Some of the adversity is our own fault. We do it to ourselves. Yeah. But some of it is just completely out of our hands and we just have to face it. It comes at us. Right?
It's external.
It's an external force that we can't really handle. And it's frustrating. And yet we all have to deal with adversity all the time. And so I just wanted to bring some value to that subject today and share some stories and just get into the nitty gritty of what that really takes. Because one of a favorite quote of mine is everything rises and falls on leadership. That's John Maxwell. And I really do believe in that case that it's a huge deal with adversity is that adversity requires leadership to get through, whether you're leading yourself through it or you're leading other people through it. Adversity calls for leadership to overcome, right? So what kinds of adversity are we going to face? I think that it's good to kind of cover all the different things that you're, especially from a business standpoint, is what adversity is going to come that you can try to anticipate, right? So there's economic downturn, which is one of the big adversities we're facing right now. When things change, when momentum shifts, when things aren't going the way you thought they would go, or they were going really good and now they're not, right? So that's a kind of adversity. We've got accidents and mistakes. We've got competition and attacks. So, you know, a new competitor comes into the market, or somebody gives you a bad review or starts talking shit about your business, right? Yeah. Like these things come out of nowhere. Like, what the heck did I do to deserve this kind of thing?
And they may not even have done business with you. They just don't like you.
Well, it's funny when we were involved with some of the protests that went on during COVID, from a political standpoint, some people just didn't agree with that. And so we actually had a cyber attack against our company on Google reviews. And we had like literally hundreds and hundreds of negative reviews flow in about our business on crazy. Google out of nowhere. So it's like, you just don't know what's going to come at you, right? Like things come, competition attacks, changes in rules and laws. Like you can be just chugging along and things are going fine. And then all of a sudden they change rules. You just had this with Airbnb in British Columbia and Ontario. All these people are building up these Airbnb businesses. They've got these properties, and then boom, the government decides, okay, that's not legal anymore. You can't have that. Yeah. You've built your business around a thing, and then boom, the rules change. Yeah. And it's not about fairness. Like adversity isn't fair. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care what kind of business you're in. It's going to come. So things just change up on you, right? Rules of hours of service rules for trucking just change out of nowhere. Yeah. Right? COVID, they just changed the rules. What's an essential business? What isn't? What are you going to do now? You have adversity, right?
And honestly, COVID
changes in technology, right? Like especially in the last 2 decades, technology is at the forefront, should be at the forefront of everybody's mind. What's going to change tomorrow that's going to completely change my business? We're looking at AI and what it's doing to all different industries now, autonomous vehicles, new ideas and new concepts and new ways of dealing with things. When I toured the Detroit engine plant where they build Detroit engines and drivetrain stuff, they told me over the course of, I don't even know how many years, they went from 12,000 on-site employees to 1,200.
Wow.
Over a decade or something, and all through
crazy.
robotics and systems and technology.
Yeah.
So they killed 9 out of 10 jobs in that
insane.
location, which maybe for the business is good and maybe it wasn't. Maybe for a competitor, if you're a competitor of them building the same product and you haven't done what they've done, now you don't have that edge anymore and you don't know what you're going to do, right?
Yeah.
So technology, and then social change is what you're doing still popular. You were selling this particular thing and it was going crazy, and then people just decided that's not cool anymore, right? And now you got to pivot, or they decide that plastic isn't cool anymore and you make plastic products. I have a friend who's in the plastic business and he's like, yeah, we're socially not acceptable and they're banning us by the government.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that? So there's these adversities that come at you all the time and you just don't know when or how or what. You can try to anticipate, but at the end of the day, you just got to know if you're going to be leading anything or in business that adversity is something you got to deal with, right?
Well, social change, getting canceled for standing up for what you believe in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Happens on both sides.
People writing articles about you. For a little while there, if you Googled my name, all you got is people crapping on me on Twitter about how I'm a communist or what is it? Fascist or whatever
the word of the day.
The word of the day, racist, fascist, crazy person in general.
Yeah.
Anarchist,
yeah.
Yeah, it's all good, right? So it's a crazy world and it's a fast moving world and there's a lot of problems. And especially now when our economy is in a state of like flux due to what's going on out there, there's a lot of financial and economic adversity that people are dealing with. And a lot of people don't know how or what to do about it.
Yeah, it's a mindset, right? A lot of things will happen to us. They're external, and we just have to adapt. And if you don't adapt, you die.
Yeah.
Essentially.
So this is kind of where I wanted to go. Of course, I have lots of ideas of what you should do, but let's start with what you should not do, because I think that's probably a good way to start, right? And I see all different versions of this, whether, it could be on a sports team. It can be a head of a household. If it's someone who's leading their family, it could be how you're leading your business. It could be a department head that you're dealing with, but everybody kind of reacts and does things differently when adversity comes. And it's really important to check yourself and make sure you're not doing one of these things, right? So I'm going to start with abdicating, ignoring the problem, or stopping communication. So when things happen that are bad or things happen that we don't like, especially people who are conflict adverse, often they just run away from the problem, right? Like they don't want to deal with it. They ignore the email. Someone asks for a meeting. Hey, I want to talk to you about this. They run away. They stop communicating. Sometimes, especially if you're the leader of something big and you see something bad that no one else yet sees, first, you freeze up. You don't want anyone to find out. So you stop communicating, you get segregated and alone, and then you panic about it, right? And so you just start reeling, you freeze, you get paralyzed, right? So don't do that. Don't panic. Don't act too rashly. Another thing is that you got fight or flight. So some people, flight is the alone, go away, run away, don't communicate, don't do your deal. Fight is the opposite. I got to take care of this right now. I'm not going to think about how I'm going to deal with this, but I'm just going to make a move. I'm going to lay people off, or I'm going to cancel that order, or I'm going to stop this in the middle of the project, or they start acting without good information. They just start attacking the problem without really thinking through the problem first. It's another really bad response.
Well, okay, now you said not just shutting down. Now, is there there must be a discerning factor, a way to distinguish, because sometimes it's good for a leader to not share everything initially until they get, like you said, more information. Because if you start sharing, the world's turning upside down and the next day it's fine, you're like, oh no, I shouldn't have shared that.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have panicked. And this is the nuance of it. It's both, right? It's okay, we're not going to run away. I'm talking about someone who goes away for a week or just doesn't, I'm just not going to talk about it. I don't want to deal with it. Like abdicating it, just leaving it all together. But then the next person is email comes in and they run out into the office screaming, we're going under.
The sky is falling.
Chicken Little, right?
Yeah.
We've known both things to happen. Most people have experienced a variety of it where someone just panics immediately and the other person just won't tell you. Like we all have that mother-in-law, the one that calls you before anything's actually wrong, and then the one that won't tell you for 3 years that something was going on. Right? Like there's both versions, right? But the other thing is getting caught up in self-doubt. So when you're the leader of something, when something goes wrong, often we blame ourselves, right? And I think it is important to think about ourselves and our part in it, but we don't want to get caught up in like a downward spiral of self that, oh, I shouldn't have done it. I made a mistake. People are going to be disappointed in me, blah, 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 blah. You can just, and that's part of the getting alone or segregating yourself thing, is that you can get into this like doom loop.
Oh yeah.
Of that you made a mistake and everything and like go down there. And that's not helpful either at the end of the day. And that leads into a point that I'm going to make on what we need to do, but we don't want to do that, right? We have to accept what's actually going on, not spin our tires on it and go into a deep dark hole over it or something that happens. It happened. Now what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, it's about moving forward, right?
Yeah, you got to move forward. Yeah. So self-doubt is not moving you forward. It doesn't benefit you whatsoever. So we got to set that aside. Yeah. Right.
I always said that like trying to find out who's at fault, why did it happen, all that stuff sometimes is just like, that's a witch hunt. And right now we need to move forward.
Which
and
we don't need to actually. My next point.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, blame others or external factors. Become a victim. Pass responsibility. Like a lot of times you go, okay, something bad happened. I got to cover my ass. And this is a very common thing too, right? Is where people are just like, I need to make sure I'm not the one that gets blamed for this, right? And that's not helpful either, right?
Yeah, no.
The other thing is that people can, okay, I'm not going to blame any person in particular, but I'm going to blame something that's a nothing. That it's out of our control. The economy's bad. We didn't do anything to deserve this, and it's terrible, but it's the economy's fault. Okay, or it's our competitor's fault, or it's our customer's fault, or it's the manufacturer's fault, or we can keep pointing and blaming and coming up with a reason why something is wrong. But blaming and passing responsibility is not helpful either, because it doesn't solve the problem and it doesn't move it in a good direction.
You're not looking at the situation and yourself honestly on it.
Yeah, well, and you can just come up with like things that aren't even facts. They're like, it's not a fact that the economy is bad. Or maybe it is a fact, but it's not a fact that is going to be helpful whatsoever to you fixing the state that you're currently in or your business is in. Or if something bad happened and you were in your relationship and you want to blame the other person for their part in it, that's not going to fix it. Right. Something that I've heard said too is whoever you blame is who you pass responsibility to fix the problem. So if I blame the government for the economy's situation that we're in, then I'm also expecting them to resolve it. And if you really think about that perspective, do you believe that they're going to resolve it? Because they're probably not.
No.
So then there's no point in blaming them or passing the responsibility to them, because they're not going to take the responsibility and fix it for you.
And that goes back to the first point, abdication.
Yeah, you're abdicating responsibility. Yeah. There's abdicating just running away and putting your head in the sand. This is the whole thing. I'm just going to abdicate the responsibility of the problem. I'm not dealing with it. Yeah. Right? That's not my problem. It's not my issue. Someone else has to fix this, not me. Yeah. Right? So that's not helpful whatsoever. Another thing is when you see adversity, but you don't think that it'll ever happen to you. The economy is like, again, I'm hitting the economy here a lot, and I will throughout this, because it's a tough situation we're in. And not every corner and every niche and every situation is everyone in a bad economy, but in general, there's a bad economy. And when you know that's happening or coming, you can say, well, it won't happen to me. Like, we're bulletproof. Our business doesn't have downtimes. Our business doesn't this. That's beyond us. I don't need to worry about that. I think that's not helpful either. Being arrogant, thinking it's not going to be you. Some of the biggest, most powerful companies in the world have toppled and gone into bankruptcy. BlackBerry. Yeah. The first people to create the smartphone essentially are the ones that ultimately don't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like these things can come and go, and you can just be arrogant about it. And that's not helpful either.
No.
Right. So just keeping going down the line here. Segregation is something that I talked about. Don't segregate yourself. We want to be a unifying factor. We're always going to be better together, right? Yep. So being segregated takes away the power for other people to bring solutions, to benefit from support, to be able to debrief and discuss things. Segregation takes away all the power that you have to solve problems, or a lot of it, right? There's a difference between being alone to think for a little bit, but ultimately that's not going to typically solve the problem. The more support and the more advice and the more good input you can get, the faster you're going to get out of a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing that is not helpful is to lie or downplay the situation. So again, when you come to advocating, you find out something bad and we're just going to not tell someone. We're going to lie about it. We're going to say it's not a big deal when it is, ignoring the facts that are actually coming in and going, that's not, we don't need to talk about that. But just honestly going away from your values, which is what I'm kind of leading into here, is when adversity comes and you're under pressure, it's not the time to go away from your values. It's not the time to not worry about your integrity. It's not the time to not care about people. It's not the time to not communicate. It's not the time to stop being who you've always been and what you believe in and stand for. And often you see people come up against adversity and their values start to crumble or to get pressure on them. And this is when you really need to lean into your values, is when you're in adversity, not just let them fall to the wayside, because then your character is now in question as well.
So do you have an example of that happening recently or in the past, or something that you can remember?
Well, I think a good example for us trying to do that correctly is, building our mechanic shop, taking on a bunch of new parts lines, and then discovering that one of those parts lines was like horrible, bad one and I've talked about this a few times, where we had to warranty a ton of parts with no support from the manufacturer, and it ended up being like sub $1 million cost to our business, which really hurt and still hurting our business ultimately, right? So it's a lot of money. But when we sat in many meetings going, okay, well, technically, we're not responsible. We could call every one of our customers and say, hey, this manufacturer is not backing up their product. This wasn't a good product choice. That really sucks. Sorry, sucks for you.
There'd be a certain amount of justification for that.
Well, we could justify it if we want. We could pass responsibility. You can call them. I don't think they're going to help you. They're not helping us. Sucks. Sorry, man. Justifiable. And that's what the majority of our competitors had done in similar scenarios. And those individual vendors of those parts, many of them were sold through another vendor and they wouldn't back it up as well. But we went into our values and said, okay, do we feel right about not standing behind this? Do we feel right about leaving our customers hanging them out to dry on that? Or do we feel that it's best for our integrity, who we are and our brand, to stand behind these products? And there was quite a debate about it, because at the end of the day, it's a lot of money, right? And when a lot of money and a lot of hurt feelings and people's bonuses and everyone's involvement in that gets to be a matter of, like, again, when you start talking about people's money, we often see values the lines to get blurred a little bit about what is integrity, what's the right thing to do, what is good communication, what is, like, again, money is typically a high pressure scenario, but like money and power, when those things start to get lost or people's livelihoods get on the line, values often disintegrate. Yeah.
Well, it's a rubber meets the road. I mean, values are great when they're hovering above the concrete. But it's when the rubber hits that and it actually gets pressure, and there's things that are actually pressuring it and saying, how important is this?
When sacrifice comes? You can call it money, you can call it emotional, you can call it conflict, you can call it whatever. Do we communicate well when we have to have a bad conversation with somebody? Do we continue to show up to communicate, or do we run away? Yeah. Right?
Exactly.
When someone treats us poorly, do we treat them poorly in return, or do we hold the line and keep treating them with respect and honor?
Yeah, and keep engaging them.
And keep engaging them even though things are hard.
Yeah.
So these are examples of a scenario where we've come up against adversity, right? And then the last thing, and I think that's really important, is not get good data and good feedback and not believe your own math. So a lot of the times I see people, they kind of know what the problem is. They could dig into it and get deeper with it, but they make a decision without all the information or without all the facts. Or they get all the facts, they do the math, and it tells them something they don't want to hear, so they just crumple it up and throw it in the corner. Yeah. I don't think that's true, right? And I call it believing your own math. So when you do the math and you do it right and it tells you something, you need to act on that. You need to not just go, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. Usually if you're in an adverse situation, that math's going to point to something crazy and you're going to be like, wow, that sucks. I can't believe I'm that stupid. And then off we go, right? But like a lot of times people make decisions on bad data, bad feedback, or when they do figure it out, they just ignore it because they don't want to deal with it, right? So these are just a basic list of things that I came up with on errors where I've seen people do this, or I see people generally paralyze, collapse, stop communicating, hide in their corner, get overstressed, don't get a good advice. Like they don't do the things that they need to do to actually face the adversity head on and deal with it. Mm-hmm. So that segues me into the next thing that I want to talk about is what do you need to do? Right? Like what do we need to do as a leader? Like this is a Built to Lead podcast. If you're listening to this, I assume you want to be built to lead, or you are built to lead, or you're trying to better yourself in these areas, right?
So you're building yourself to lead.
Yeah, you're building, built to lead is what you're coming here to get built.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is where I'm going to lead you down this road. So I have kind of a 5-step process that I broke down here for when we're facing adversity and how we need to kind of step-by-step work our way through it more tangibly. And then I'm going to touch on some emotional factors that get dealt with in there as well. So number one, when we have adversity, I said everything rises and falls on leadership. Often we have a leadership void in the chaos. So something bad happens. And if there were leaders there, often they kind of will slink off into the bushes. Often when something was bad that happened, maybe someone who wasn't really wanting to take full responsibility for leadership realizes it and backs out of the way. Often a void gets created, right? Or you were the leader and you're tempted to abdicate that void, right? When there's chaos, there's a void and leadership is needed desperately.
Yeah.
And so the first thing we got to do as a leader is step into it, right? So we have to say, yeah, I'm the leader, or I'm going to lead. I see that there's a need here and I'm going to fulfill that need. So number one is that we got to stand up out of our chair and go, okay, I'm going to take this bull by the horns and I'm going to help deal with this. Yeah. I'm not saying I have the answers, but I'm going to headman this thing. I'm going to be the tip of the spear. I'm going to stand in the gap. I'm going to do what it takes to try and make this thing happen. I'm going to take responsibility and initiative, right? So if you're the boss already, that void was built for you.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're working at a company, what often happens is when adversity strikes, it's the time when people who are good in the face of adversity step up and the people who aren't crumble and go down, right? It's kind of a two-way street. It's one or the other. And I've seen lots of guys that are decent, good managers, and often more managers than leaders, but they're in that position where when adversity strikes, they just collapse, they paralyze, they check out, they don't know what to do, they're frozen. Right. And there's people who are built for a time of adversity, right? And they deal with the chaos, they get into it and they're not afraid to jump in. Right.
Yeah, they see a gap and they jump in.
Yeah, they need it. Like they are activated by adversity. And I'm that kind of a person. And I'll say it's funny when it's not funny. I say that too much. Interesting. We were in a really bad car accident. 5 years ago now. And when we had the car accident, I was in the passenger seat and my wife was in the driver's seat. We weren't at fault, but it was just a very horrible head-on collision on the highway. So accident happens, everything's going down and it's just chaos. You're digging your way out of the vehicle. You're finding all your kids and your people in the car and the dog, and there's stuff from the back seat and the front seat and the front seat and the back seat. There's people all around panicking because there's a nasty accident. There's injured people. It's pure chaos. And my mind clears. And this is just how I work as a person who's good at dealing with chaos, is I get calm, I get clear, and I start attacking the problem one issue at a time. Okay, what's the number one thing I prioritize? Again, people go into shock. Some people, my wife's standing in the middle of the road, freaking out, like, where's everybody? Where's my kids? Why did this happen? And she's just fully in panic mode, just losing her mind, right? And upset and emotional, and I'm calm, right? And this is the kind of thing that a leader who can step in. I needed to take control. I needed to step in the leadership in that moment. So I got everyone together. I figured it all out. You go sit over here. You deal with that. He's calling the ambulance. This is happening. I'm taking control of the situation. I'm stepping into the void, because if I didn't, there's a void and the chaos will continue, right? One of the things that was said, I'm stealing from John Maxwell as well, is there's 3 steps when you step into that leadership. Number 1, stabilize. So it's chaos. Everything's wrong. People don't know what to do. People are panicking. There's emotions involved. People are stepping up and falling down and moving all over the place. We first need to stabilize. So we need to stabilize the situation. We need to stabilize the people. We need to stabilize emotions. We need to get it calmed down enough to start The next step, organize. So now we need to start organizing the situation. Everything's calmed down. We see everything that's going on. We know what's happening. We got to organize everything because the chaos is still chaotic. It might be calmer, but it's still in full chaos. So now we're going to start organizing the situation.
Triage,
That's in an accident scenario. In a business scenario, okay, I've calmed everyone down. We're clear on what happened. Now I need to find the right people that I need to deal with this problem. I need to get them in a room and I need to dispatch them. So it's stabilize, organize, mobilize. So after I've organized everything and I figured out what our priorities are, now I need to send people out with their tasks. Okay, you're the leader of the operations department. You're going to do this, 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 and this. Go do that. You're the leader of the sales department. You're going to do this, 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 and this. Go do that. There's an accident right now. You're head manning that accident. You're going to support him. You're going to do this. Go deal with it. Right? So stabilize, organize, mobilize. It's a really strong, solid way to think about things when chaos happens or an accident happens or anything that you need to deal with. Right?
Or something bad happens. Yeah. Like I've been in situations where if the leader doesn't step in, all of a sudden everybody, because there's information everywhere, but now they're taking bits of information from here, and they're creating conclusions that are completely wrong.
It's stabilize, right? You have to stabilize everything first because the panic and the emotional response, this is the one that don't respond rashly, right? We're not just going to react to the situation. We want to collect everything and then respond, right? And so that's why it's so important that we stabilize. Again, and a lot of people won't want to stabilize, and this is why they need leadership, is because they're just like, something's on fire. Yeah. We have to put out the fire. And they're correct, but they'll run into the fire, get choked out by the smoke and die in the fire because they got to put the fire out, right? They didn't think before they acted, right? And so this is why it's important for people to have leadership, because the panic reactors need to be led well, right? They can be mobilized in very powerful way because they want to act. They're action people. That's great. But they need to be stabilized, organized, and then mobilized. They want to mobilize before the other two steps are done. And that's not what you want. That's when accidents get worse, right? Okay, step 2. Face the brutal facts and figure out where you actually are. So this is, again, in the stabilization reality of the situation to organization. At the end of the day, we need to see what's actually going on. And a lot of people, and you know, an accident is an extreme situation where there's a lot of noise and there's activity and there's immediate danger. In business, that's not often the case. That's not usually what's going on. What's going on is something has been slipping for a while, or something's come to our attention, or a customer has left us, or whatever scenario that we don't want to happen has happened. And it's not like an immediate panic scenario, but we got to face the brutal facts of what's going on. And we have to say, this is where we are now, because you can't go anywhere if you don't know where you are. Right. And this is a leadership thing and a vision thing, is when you're a leader of something, you need to actually be very self-aware and aware of your group so that you know where you actually are on the map of wherever you're going, right? When you have a mission and a vision, you are looking at where you're going. But if you don't know where on that map that you are right now, you don't know where to go next, right? You can have a map, but if you're not on the map, like it's like you don't have a "you are here" button in the mall when you're looking at the thing. That doesn't help you at all because you don't know where to go from here. And that's what happens with a lot of people is that they're thinking about where we were prior to the crisis or the chaos or the problem. They're not thinking about where we are now. Right. They're going, wow, this is what we had and this is what we're doing and now we don't have it. And they're worried about how it used to be, but that doesn't matter anymore. That's in the past now. This is where we are now. The reality is that person doesn't work here anymore and we don't have access to their skills. The reality is that truck was in an accident, it's gone and we don't have access to it anymore and the money is lost. That's another scenario often is like they don't accept what is lost in the situation. It's like it is gone now. We can't get it back. It's over. There's no sense being emotional and worried and panicked about that. It's over. We can't change that now. Right? And so it really, as a leader, when you're stabilizing people, you need to get them standing in the same air, on the same ground that you're at, right? And that's by facing the reality of the brutal facts. The brutal facts is it's gone. The money's lost, the truck's broken, the employee's gone, the customer's left, we didn't get paid, they're bankrupt, whatever it is. There's no more talk about the things that are irrelevant because that's in the past now, right?
It's about moving forward.
It is. And you can't move forward when you're thinking in the past and you think you were where you were before. And that's just not the case. And it always surprises me how really actually hard it can be to get people on board with that's done now. It's over. Leave it behind. Right. It's like they're leaving their best friend in the war. Is like, that guy's dead. Yeah. Right. Like, and we're still in the chaos, and there might be a time to go back and deal with that, but it's not now. Yeah. It's over. He's dead. Leave him behind. We got to survive. Yeah. Right. Lop off the arm that's got the gangrene so that you can keep going. Yeah. Right.
Well, and honestly, if your goal is moving forward and you're constantly thinking about the past and that past, situation, you're actually going to be moving towards that past situation.
Yeah. If you're looking at it, you're probably heading in that direction.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not serving you. Right. Yeah. So it's brutal. And that's why I say the brutal facts is because you can't sugarcoat it. This is the reality. And often people need to actually hear the statement, the money's gone. He's dead. That person ain't coming back. Like that harsh statement, it's brutal. It's a brutal reality, but we got to face it and accept it before we can move on. Right. So facing the brutal facts and bringing everyone to where you actually are, who's on your team, who you're leading. That's number 2. Number 3, don't blame external factors. And I brought this up before. And the reason why it's so important in this step process is like, okay, I've taken leadership. I'm filling the void. Everyone needs that leadership. Now they're looking at me. Face the brutal facts. Okay, now I got to bring them all here. Now that we've stabilized the situation and we're going to start organizing, now we have to stop, not alleviate blame, because often people get to this point and then the person who's leading them goes, it's just an accident, just happened. We can't do anything about it now. And that's true, but they don't look in the mirror and actually go, okay, what could we have done differently? What did we do wrong? What needs to change? There's a whole, and I'm going to get into functional questions at the end of this, but there is the right questions to ask and there's the wrong ones to ask. It never, ever benefits you to take the victim spot. Victims can't change their situation, right? People, you're in charge of your own reality, then you can start changing your situation, but victims can't. Right. Yeah. And so if we start getting that victim complex, and I've sat in boardroom meetings where that mindset started to overtake and it's like, well, this thing happened and there's nothing we can do. And it was so-and-so's fault. And we start blaming. And then we go, okay, well, the weather was bad. And like, there's so many different varieties of that situation where you can just not take on responsibility for what's going on. So we don't want to do that. We want to go, okay, what can we control? What is it that we could do differently, and really dig into the debriefing and the reality of what needs to happen here, which goes into number 4, get to the root of the problem. So once we've accepted responsibility, we're going to do something about this. What is it that we actually need to do? This is where I go into the earlier, like the opposite of getting good, like making sure you get the right data, making sure you're focusing on the facts and not on fluffy things that are opinions. It doesn't matter what everyone's opinion is necessarily on. I need facts. Yeah. Right. I need to not focus on things that are not important. I need to not get distracted by what I call the branches. When we're getting to the root of a problem, we're not getting stuck in the branches. The branches is, well, if Karen hadn't called Susan and told Susan about this, Susan wouldn't have gotten to her husband who told the customer, and the customer wouldn't have found out. It's like, that doesn't matter. Yeah. That doesn't matter right now. And there's been many of these debriefs that I've been in where I have to go, no. Stop talking about that. That's a branch. We're not talking about branches. We got to get to the trunk of this tree and follow it down to the root and figure out what the real problem is here. Because a branch is just something that happened that was somewhat unrelated to the root of the problem, or it's something that is a symptom. It's a symptom of a bigger problem. Yeah. Right. The reason that customer left is because we didn't provide them with enough value, or we didn't give them good customer service, or our product sucks. Right. At the end of that's the root of the problem. It's not that they found out about something that somebody did and blah, blah, blah. That's not it. It's not that the price was $5 too much or too little. It's not, there's a million branches we can go down and make excuses, and that's all they are for what the actual root of the problem is. We got to get to the root of the problem. Why did this happen? What are we doing wrong? What's the thing that we control here that we need to change or fix or solve? The root of the problem might be that your market has changed and your product is no longer relevant, and you have to accept that brutal fact, right?
And then you have to know where you are and then move on from there.
Yeah.
Right.
Those things
are
travel
distraction.
Back. But without, you can get down to step 3 and then not get to the root of it. And then you can start attacking the things that don't make any difference, right? Like if you don't,
waste of energy.
Yeah. You start blowing your energy off on things that don't really matter, on bad data, bad feedback, branches, excuses. You start tackling and sending your resources out on things that don't matter. You're going to stay in crisis. You're going to stay in adversity, right? It's not going to solve the problem forever. You want to solve this problem for good. You need to, if a major move needs to be made here, a pivot needs to be made or whatever, you need to do the one right decision and put your full energy into that, because in a lot of cases, if you don't get that root and get that adjustment and that shift made, you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
Right? Someone's going to die in that car accident if you don't get to the root of the biggest priority of the problem that needs dealt with. Somebody's going to die. Your business is going to die, and people are going to lose their livelihoods if you don't figure out what the root of the problem is and get this business back on track. Right?
Do you have an example of a time where you were like just focused in the wrong area? Where you were spending energy on the branches and then you eventually realized, oh man, this is a waste of our energy?
That's a really good question. I guarantee you I have an example. It's just, what can I pull it out of my brain right now? I don't know if this is is like a story example necessarily, but what happens, I think, is we can think that we found the right solution, or we can find a shiny thing that might band-aid a solution for us. And then we start spending our energy on that because it's easier, or it's fancier, or it's shinier than the brutal reality of what needs to happen. We can change the person in leadership over a team. We can rejig things. We can start a new department. We can, if we have crappy customer service in our business, we can say, okay, we're going to hire a customer service rep and that's going to fix it. The problem is that everyone on the front line isn't treating the customer properly. So we can get a person that comes in and does surveys and then tells their employees that they need to treat our customer better. But if nobody else cares about customer service and that's not the culture of our business, that's not going to solve the problem, right? So we get caught up in a scenario trying to solve it because it's easier for us to just hire a customer service rep than to try and change the culture of our frontline workers. Yeah. Right? Like that's a bigger, nastier, brutal root problem. This is maybe, because again, you can sit on a team and everyone can go, yeah, that sounds like a pretty good idea. We could get a customer service rep.
Yeah.
Like that would be
is
great.
Kind of a form of abdication.
It is. We're passing it to somebody else because we don't actually want to deal with the really brutal scenario that we got to deal with. Yeah. The hard questions we got to ask ourselves. Right. Another example is, and I guess this is probably a good story to get into with this, and the overall point of it will make the point that I'm trying to get to. Back in, I think it was around 2018, we were things were chugging along nicely economically. We were growing and growing, grew out of our current space. We started building our new facility in our new building, and we're about halfway into that, and then we had the market downturn and COVID hit. So right as we started building our building, COVID hit. And we were like neck deep in bills and building costs. And then our rates dropped and our expenses went up and everything went wrong, like immediate economic crisis. And so we looked at our situation and went, what can we control? What can't we control? What do we got to do? Do we need to lay people off? Do we need to let certain people go that, are vaccinated or not vaccinated? Do we have to follow the rules of what's happening? What do we do here? Right? What are we going to do? Mm-hmm. I said 2018, so it would have been good in 2018 going into 19. Yeah. I might be wrong on the time. Doesn't matter. So when I hire people, I take that responsibility very seriously, that I have You've quit another job or come from another place to come to work for us so that you can be fulfilled in the work that you do, that your life can get better, and that you can contribute to the work that I'm providing you to do. So I feel it's my responsibility to provide you with work and a good job and a solid paycheck, and that you can trust and rely on me, and I'm going to make the best decisions for you as my employee. So the quick answer, and the answer you see a lot of big corporations do when things get bad, is they go cut layoffs. They go to layoffs. And it's become a mathematical equation in the corporate world now. It's like, okay, when times get tough, we just lay this many people off, this many people go away, and whereas the problem I have with that is that I wouldn't make a decision to not lay a few people off that cost everyone else in the whole company their jobs. I'm going to do whatever it is necessary to take to make sure that I keep our company financially stable and safe and make sure everyone's getting their paychecks. But I also don't believe in hacking off, like putting a handful of people completely out for the benefit of a few more, right? I'm not saying that very well, but the point is that I don't really believe in layoffs. I don't believe in cutting people's livelihoods to save other people's butts. Right. I feel that we come all in this together, and if I've made that commitment to you, then we as an organization are going to serve one another to ultimately win. The community wins together. So in that particular time, we decided to go with a company wide pay cut, right? And this is where I think you couldn't go down to the root of the problem and really face the brutal facts is that we had to cut this much money per month, or else we were going to continually go backwards and potentially get ourselves in such a financial situation that everyone could lose their jobs. Yeah. I could ignore that and just keep plowing ahead and wait until the bank shuts us down and people's paychecks aren't going through. I can lay off a certain number of people, sell a bunch of equipment, and do a bunch of panic things that aren't necessarily the smartest thing for the company. Or I can look at the big picture and go, everybody can keep their job. Everybody can get by. We all work together. We all knuckle down. We all focus. We're stronger together than with less people. We're stronger together in this scenario. And so that's the decision we made. I got advice. Brought the team together. I unified everybody. I made sure everyone was on board and that they agreed that this was the best sacrifice that we can make as a group to make this move and make sure that we come out the other side. And I stabilized, I organized, and then I mobilized, and we made that decision. Right. And I think we only needed to do that for 6 months, and then we were able to return everyone back to regular wages. Thank the Lord. Yeah. But the bigger picture here is there was a serious financial crisis that we were in as an organization, and we were under a lot of pressure, and a lot of people maybe didn't even understand why or how we did it. But we went to the root of the problem. We faced the brutal facts. And then to point number 5 that I'm going to make here, solve and execute. So we can get through 1, 2, 3, 4, and we can even find the root of the problem and then not be willing to deal with it. And this is where that story can kind of get into places, is that the last thing I ever wanted to do, or ever still to this day want to do, we had to do it twice in 20 years, where we did a pay cut out to the staff. We cut everything we could cut. We were as prudent as we could be. We, did everything that could be done. But the reality is if we didn't do more, the company was going to suffer, or our whole organization was going to be put at risk, which is everyone's livelihoods, everyone's jobs, everyone's futures, which are now bright and happy and healthy. And we can see past that to the other side. At the end of the day, you have to create the solution. You have to believe your math. You have to look at the situation, and whether you like it or not, you have to make the right choice. And as the leader, you have to make the choice that serves everybody that you're leading, not just the one that serves you, right? And so that solve and execute part, the taking action part, the doing the thing that nobody wants to do, to have the hard conversations nobody wants to have, to communicate to everybody and get buy-in and do all those things. Those are the nasty things. They're the leadership is not for the faint of heart. It's not leadership is not meant to be so that you can stand on your high horse and get all the benefits that no one else gets. Leadership is about serving the whole group. Servant leadership is what I believe leadership is about. And if you can't connect servant to leadership in your mind, then you've got a wrong picture of what's really required to be a proper leader, right? So again, just to recap, Step into the leadership void, number 1. Number 2, face the brutal facts and figure out where you actually are, and then bring up people along with you. Number 3, don't blame external factors. Take responsibility. Number 4, get to the root of the problem, figure out what actually is wrong, and actually not get caught in the branches and the trunk and everything. Get right to the bottom so that when you actually get to number 5, that this actually fixes the problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Your energy is well spent.
That you spend your energy well, and often you only have one shot at this, right? If you don't get this right, it's the end, right? So this is really important that we get to the root. And then number 5, solve and execute. So do the math, get the data, get the advice, get everything you need to do, come up with a strong solution that fixes it for good. That isn't just a Band-Aid or a crack at it. The real solution that we know is going to lead us to victory, and then execute, which is, again, stabilize, organize, mobilize. So that's how I recommend that you deal with crisis. I hope that's helpful to everybody. Those 5 steps, and then the 3, stabilize, organize, mobilize. These are very strong things. When you're in crisis, these are things that you can literally look at and attack tangibly.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a roadmap.
It's a roadmap to how to deal with crisis or deal with adversity. Yeah. Right? And a lot of people are in it right now. Like, they're in the thick of it and they don't know what to do. Right. And this is the playbook of how to deal with that. Okay. I want to get into a couple other things here. And that is kind of the more the emotional side of things, because I think, again, tactics and tangible things to do are great, but there's a lot more nuance to these things than just the tactics. Like, you can say these things and you can execute and you move ahead, and that's really great. But there's more to it. The more people that are involved, the more emotions are high, the more things that need to be dealt with. And you as a leader need to be self-aware and have good perspective and understanding of how your other people are responding and dealing with these things. I touched on a few of these already, but I'm going to go through them. As the leader, we need to emotionally absorb other people's uncertainty. So when we're in a crisis or we're dealing with adversity, it usually means there's some uncertainty attached to it. There's always some level of uncertainty in business, but in adversity and in crisis, there's a lot of uncertainty, right? And people are looking for stability. They're looking for someone to lead them. That's where the void comes from, is that people are uncertain and they don't know what to do, right? And I'm not saying that you are necessarily going to be certain or that you're going to have the answers or that you know what to do, but you still have to absorb their uncertainty and come in it with the complete and full belief that you're capable of finding a solution and like going through the steps and getting us through adversity. You actually believe in yourself as a leader, and you're getting them to believe in you, that you're certain and you're confident that we can get through this, right? It goes back to, and I brought this up many times before, it's Stockdale Paradox. If you haven't read about it, you really should. And it's basically Lieutenant Stockdale, who was in a prisoner of war camp for many years, who led many people in that camp through that time of complete and utter horrible, hopeless disaster, just with this strong belief that they would ultimately overcome. We're not going to be too optimistic about it. We're not going to ignore the facts. We're not going to, sugarcoat things or assume that it's all going to get better tomorrow. This situation is bad. It sucks, but I believe I will win in the end. I can overcome anything given enough time. I believe in myself. And that's what the leader needs. And they need to bleed that out to everyone else by absorbing their uncertainty, answering their questions, bringing them into the fold, communicating well, having optimism and positivity, selling the vision and the mission of where we're going with this and how we're going to get there, bringing people in, helping them to understand where we are now, right? You're going to kill uncertainty and absorb uncertainty as the leader. So that's a huge emotional thing. My dad talks about all the time when he comes in or when I come in and we've been away for a while, you can see that leadership void has created a bit of uncertainty. And in a roundabout way, everyone is just looking for someone who has their hand on the helm of the ship or on the steering wheel of where we're going. They're steering this. Somebody is steering us. Sigh of relief, right? Yeah. That's a big part about being a leader. And especially in adversity and crisis is that, are you steering this helm? They're certain that somebody is taking responsibility. It's you, right? So that is one of the major emotional voids that you're standing in taking the leadership is taking care of people's uncertainty. Being present, optimistic, and controlling the narrative. So again, people who are spiral out of control type people, or people just who aren't in leadership and need to be led, they don't do well left alone in uncertainty or in crisis or in chaos. The longer you leave them alone, the longer you don't communicate, the longer they're left to their own, they create their own narratives. And that's not typically a positive narrative, right? And so as a leader, what we want to do is, and I'm not saying to manipulate people, but to keep people focused, right? Controlling the narrative is, yeah, this happened. These are the facts. That's fine. This is what we're going to do. This is the direction we're going in. We've got this under control. We're going to attack this. We're going to overcome this. You're controlling that narrative. So when they sit down and they get back to doing what they were supposed to do, they have some marching orders. They know that it's being taken care of and that we're going to overcome this in the end. That's the narrative they need. It's not typically the narrative they come to on their own, right? We've all been around or in a situation where someone is spiraling and all they can think about is the worst case scenarios and I can't handle that and this is going to happen. And the longer they spiral and the more out of control they get, the more long time they're left alone, or they get in a negative doom loop or in a small group of people who tend to be really negative or don't handle situations of chaos or stress very well, the worse it gets. And you can't be letting your teams or your small teams or your other leaders or your managers get going down and stirring up the chaos. You're letting it, like the fire, build. You got to put the fire out, right? Yeah.
So it seems that a lot of times they're spiraling, they're looking through the void and not seeing anything, and all you're doing is coming in and saying, here's the roadmap, here's where we are, here's where we're going, calm down.
It's okay,
because
we're gonna get there.
We know everything that's going to happen. Or at least we know the
we
possibilities.
have a plan. Things are probably going to change. And I say this, I jokingly say this, no matter what happens, whatever I tell you right now, it's going to change.
Yeah.
But this is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
We're going in a direction. We all know that direction. We're all headed that way. We're together. We're strong. If we got to pivot, we'll pivot. It's fine.
Yeah. If the road falls out beneath us, we still know where we're going.
Yeah. Now we just have adapt. A new adversity. Now we got to climb up and then get back on the road. Like someone needs to control that narrative with optimism. And what I don't mean by that is ignoring the facts. Right. And so another thing that I'm on this list here is be encouraging without ignoring the challenges. Right. So controlling the narrative is making sure that you're casting the vision and the plan and the roadmap, and you're letting them know you have control of the helm and it's okay. I'm here and we're leading and we're together and we're strong and that's all good. But also encouraging is, yes, this is going to be hard. Yes, we're in the thick of it. Yes, this isn't what we want to deal with. Yes, you never wanted to be here. Neither did I. But this, and this, encouraging, uplifting, helping. That's a big part of a leader, is not letting morale drop in your team when things are going bad. They need someone to prop them up, to pat them on the back, to encourage them, say, hey, this sucks. It's not your fault. You're doing a good job. Keep doing that.
Yeah.
Right? The amount of times in this last 18 months of really challenging economic time especially for the transportation trucking company, that I've sat our leadership team down and said, okay, you're the operations manager. Here's your three key factors. You need to keep hiring the right people and putting them in the trucks. You're doing a good job of that. You need to keep maintenance costs down and control our spending. You're doing a good job of that. You need to continue to lead your team and keep them healthy and positive. You're doing that. You're doing a really good job. Keep that up. Keep your head down. Keep working. Good work. That's all that needs to be said. And then you move to the sales department. Then you move to the marketing department. Then maybe they need some correction. Maybe they don't. But a lot of times they just need to go, yeah, I know it's hard. Hey, I'm with you. You're doing a good job. We're going to get through this. Right?
Yeah.
People need to be uplifted. They need to be given the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. They need to know that they're doing a good job. They need feedback. Right? Because when things are going bad, the feedback is things are going bad. What did I do wrong? I'm screwing up. I'm not doing good. Self-doubt comes in, all these other things. And they need the leader, the person who can give them the feedback, and the only person that can tell them they're doing a good job to tell them they're doing a good job. But I don't need to lie to you or sugarcoat it. Yeah, it's all good. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it sucks. Yeah, we need to sell more. Yeah, we got to get our marketing tuned in. We have to get more leads than we're getting right now. That's a challenge we're facing. Here's the roadmap we're going to do. I know you're working hard at it. I know you're capable of it. I know we're going to overcome it. Let's keep working. Right? And this goes with our kids, right? And I'm going to say I struggle with this because I tend to be way overly too hard on my kids. Like I lose sight of some of these rules in my own family, which is terrible. But kids need encouragement. They need you to work with them. They need to know that you see their effort. They need to know that they're doing a good job. They need direction. They need the roadmap. They need the positivity. They need the optimism, and they need their support.
Yeah.
It's no different with your employees.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or your team.
There's a story, Corrie ten Boom. I don't know if you've heard of her. She was a survivor of the Holocaust, and her sister, this is a story about them. And Corrie ten Boom was like, "Oh, I'm so upset. We're covered in fleas. We're in a Holocaust camp, and I'm covered with fleas." And so that mindset of like, "Oh, now you're just piling things on. Where's God in this?" And her sister turns to her and says, "Oh man, I thank God for the fleas every day." And she's like, "How can you thank God for the fleas? Like, we're already living in squalor, and now you're thanking God for the fleas." And she said, "Yeah, if it wasn't for the fleas, we'd be getting abused by the soldiers. And so they're actually keeping us safe."
Yeah.
And it's that shift in mentality, right? It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to, it's a good place to go is touching on mindset in adversity. And this is something as a leader that, again, because we can pat everyone else in the back and we can be optimistic and we can get their uncertain, like we can absorb their uncertainty. But at the end of the day, who's helping us? Who's patting us on the back? Who is, telling us it's going to be okay. Right. And it's important to have mentors and people around that are emotionally supporting you as well. But your mindset is the most important thing, because your mindset is what sets you up and gives you the strength to do these things, knowing that it's going to be okay. But you need to have a mindset, and one is an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset, which we can talk about in a second. But the other part is just a mindset that every adversity and every crisis is an opportunity. And this is something that once you get over this hump and get this mindset set in place for yourself, you can really be so much stronger of a leader in adverse scenarios, because instead of feeling frustrated or attacked or annoyed or exhausted by every bit of adversity, because it never stops in business. Adversity is something we face our whole life. But when you start seeing adversity as an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to get stronger, an opportunity to grow, then you start seeing, okay, what can I get out of this that's going to make me better on the other side? That's going to put me ahead of my competition? What's the thing that other people are going the opposite direction that I can turn and go against the grain and get ahead on, right? Every bit of adversity, what new business opportunity came available because there's a new need because of this new adversity, right? Adversity and crisis and downturn and all these things, there's opportunity in all of it. And when you start seeing it through the lens of opportunity, then you can get excited about it, right? I believe I'll get through it. Do I think it's going to be fun? Not necessarily. Do I think it's going to suck? Probably. But I also know there's an opportunity here, and I need to look for that opportunity instead of sitting in self-pity and feeling sad for myself because things aren't going the way I want them to.
Yeah, it's interesting when I played volleyball and when I coached it, and so many players are like, "Oh, the ref hates us. The ref's doing this and that." External factors. And I'd always be like, "Oh yeah, you know what? I want them to call it harder on us than on them. That way, when we win, they have no excuses, and we can win. And I know we can win even through that adversity. And that's our opportunity to get even better."
Yeah. Jocko has a saying, and it's pretty popular on the internet. And it's basically someone will be, "This happened and that happened," and it's not even that they're falling a victim or they're whatever. They're just commiserating with the unfortunate misfortune that they're in, or the adversity or the circumstance. They're describing it, and he'll listen to this and he'll be talking about a scenario and when he was in the military or whatever where this happened, and then he'll just go, "Good," at the end, and just like, "Good,
yeah,
good. Your girlfriend left you. Now you can get better.
Yep.
Good, you injured your knee. Now you can rehab it and it'll be stronger when it's done. Good, your best customer left. Guess that leaves room for you to find a bunch more better customers," right? If you can just stop at your adversity and say, "Good, where's the good? There's something good here. That's the opportunity." You change your mindset.
Yep.
Right? So every time that you're like, this is one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself. And I love Jocko for this. It's like you sit in your moment of frustration or self-pity or whatever, and you can flick your mind and go, "Good." I hear his voice in the back of my head because he's got that deep voice.
Yeah,
and it's just meat-headed squareness, military, good. Right.
Squarest head you've ever seen.
Squarest. But then you go, good. Change it. Not bad, good. What's the good? We go to the good, and we're changing our mindset. And that's going to go into the scarcity versus abundance mindset, right? Victims believe in scarcity. People who can never have enough and never be enough, never, they're just constantly in this mindset of scarcity. There isn't enough for me. We're fighting over the little that's left. That's how they think about things. And so then they never grow and they never expand to the maximum capacity that they have because they don't think that there's always more out there. And then the reality is we live in an infinite reality. Some people say there's finite resources. There is not. It's not finite. It's infinite. And when we think about that perspective, we change our mindset from the bad to the good. Scarcity, bad. I can never have enough. I'm always going to be just barely getting by and starving. And I can, like the little bit of luck that I do have, I get my little wins, but this is just my little thing. And we protect the little bit that we have so that we don't lose what we have. Whereas when there's abundance, there's always more out there. So instead of looking in and protecting what we have, we look out and go, look at all the more that I can do. I can multiply, I can create, I can get more, I can share, I can give, I can expand, right? So then when there is adversity and we have an abundance mindset, there's always more. There's always an answer. There's always an option. There's always an opportunity. Scarcity. This is bad. It's going to take what I have. I need to protect. I need to close in. I need to shut down. I need to feel sad for myself. They're totally different ways of taking our mind. Yeah. And the minute that you start accepting abundance over scarcity is the minute that you really start to expand on such a higher level. Your brain accepts there's always more out there. And so then you stop protecting and you open up to all the opportunity that exists, right? You multiply others. You start thinking, it's not me, like scarcity mindset says it's me against him and only one of us gets lunch. Abundance mindset says, if I do really good, I can give him lunch and have my own, right? I can give him lunch and go find my own lunch after because there's always more, right? So instead of pitting us against each other, it pits us to work together and uplift one another, which then continues to multiply. And that's the mindset we have to have in adversity, is that there's always more, there's always an option, there's always opportunity, there's always a way to get through this. I can make it, right? So I think it's really, really key that we look at ourselves very closely as we lead through and make sure that we're not getting stuck in a scarcity mindset and that we're focusing on abundance.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, functional questions. Kind of trying to get to the end here. I get rattled and talk all day. It's funny. Before this podcast, I do some prep, and I was going, man, I don't know how much I really got on this topic. And I sat down for an hour and I had 3 pages of notes. And I was like, oh, apparently I can drum up a little something. So here we go, endlessly. Functional questions. We got to ask ourselves the right questions. I think that's so key as a leader or just as a person who wants to expand and to grow and to manage their mindset. We need to be always asking our questions, and we need the questions that we ask ourselves to be good questions, helpful questions, right? You can ask questions that can make, how could this happen? Okay, that's not a helpful question, right? What can I do to make this better is a better question. How can I make sure that doesn't happen again? Better question. Yeah. Right. So we want to make sure we're asking yourself the right questions. So when we're facing adversity, there's a few key questions I think can make a big difference to make sure that we get going in the right direction, we get traction, we lead well, and we don't get caught up in bad mindsets. So number one, what can I control? What can I not control? Right. This is where the branches situation starts happening. When we want to get to the root of a problem, we need to go, okay, what can I control? Even when we're stabilizing, when we want people to be stable and calm in the midst of chaos, we can only take action against what we can control. When we focus on the things that we can't control, it just continues to spiral and be chaotic, because if you can't control it, you can't calm the chaos. You can't do anything about it. So we've got to focus on the things that we can put our hands on, that we can take action, that we can control. Yep. If we're in a financial crisis, what can we control? Well, we can't control the bad economy. That's for sure. The economy is going to do what it's going to do. People are going to buy and sell. Supply and demand is going to go up and down. Can't control it. No, not a lot of be naive to it, but also know that you can't change it. Yeah. Right. But what can you control? Well, you can control your marketing and sales activity. You can control how much money you're spending. You can control how much work and how hard you're working on the situation. You can control your mindset. You can control your team members to an extent. So we start going, okay, what can I do? Well, can I cut my budgets and sharpen up and tighten up? Can I make sure that I'm putting twice the effort in that my competitor's putting in, right? These are the things we can make sure we control, right? Another great set of questions is what needs to change? What can't stay the same? What needs to stay the same? And what needs to go back to the way it used to be, right? So when we have a problem that occurs, we need to debrief what the real cause of the problem is. And so we got to ask ourselves questions. You don't just get to the root of the problem by sitting there and staring at each other. We just got to ask questions. We got to answer questions. We got to move past those. We got to ask again, why? Keep asking until we get to the root, right? And not get caught up in the branches or caught up by something shiny that takes our attention away from going to the root, right? So what needs to change? What can't stay the same? What did we change that hurt us? Like, what are we doing different? A lot of times companies go away from the root cause of why they were successful in the first place, right? So we changed a bunch of things, or we stopped being disciplined, or we stopped doing this kind of sales, or we stopped being good at customer service, or we stopped being efficient at how we did things, right? We stopped being the tight, close team. Our communication got out of control when we got too big.
We deviated away from our core values.
We deviated from our core values, and people stopped connecting with us on that, right? So we got to ask ourselves those questions. And then one of the last ones is, what could we have done differently, right? We did something. We are doing something, right? And so many times we don't want to make a decision, or we don't make a decision, or we don't take action. And that is the ultimate way to die or to go down, is to just do nothing, right? To do nothing is a decision.
Yeah, it is.
And it's almost never the right decision. Occasionally it is, but most of the time, doing nothing, staying where we are, not moving, waiting it out, that's not typically the answer. We want to come up with a solution, execute, take action, move, cover and move, right? So these are some of the key questions that I came up with that we can start asking ourselves in the midst of this chaos. There's the 5 steps that I highlighted earlier. I think those are really, really powerful, as well as stabilize, organize, mobilize. Really big for executing. That's it. That's all I got on this particular topic. There's a lot more there, obviously, with adversity. You could go on and on and on. But I think that bit of information for anyone who's in the fight right now, in the battle, struggling with knowing what to do, who's got some bad news, or they're seeing their business slipping and heading in a bad direction, and they know that adversity is coming or here on their doorstep, and they don't know what to do. Or they've been in it for years. Or they've been in it for years. That's the reality. And just ignoring or not, taking action against it, or not, stepping into the leadership void that exists and allowing it to continue to degrade over time.
Or using all their energy just getting rid of branches.
Yeah, cutting all the branches off the tree instead of going to the root of it, right? Like there's a lot of different ways to tackle it or look at it, but I really do hope this is helpful. One way or another, adversity will come. Are you prepared for it? And are you built to lead? So thanks for coming today, guys. Appreciate your listens, your likes, your shares. If you could rate us, that's appreciated. If you share us with people, repost us. We always love feedback, shooting us an email or connecting with us any social media. We appreciate all you and all your support, and just hoping to add value to you with each episode. Have a great week.
Thanks, everybody.